The boy got all the bolts out of the intake. Now, see that? That's interior glue on that bolt. That's not silicone. That's interior glue. We got some sign of a gasket right there, which you can see glue right there, but no gasket. So we're about to freaking rip this thing off, but with everything out, you can see how gouged up that is. They were hammering the crap out of it in this corner. So, I'm thinking one or two things. It's not the right gaskets, or I mentioned before when you're installing intakes on one of my previous videos way back, you know, that it gets pits. You know, when you're going to reuse the intake, this is the original intake to this car, to this block, I mean. It's probably pitted up, might not be no silicone on it, you know, to fill in the pits. You know, you got to put a fine layer, a thin layer on the head and the freaking intake. You know, every damn time, so this way you don't, you know, it fills in the imperfection, because the gaskets don't fill that imperfection in. So I'm going to pass it off to my son, and I'm going to try and get off this intake. So, you're supposed to just take it in the corner, you know, you're supposed to work it. Sometimes you can't do it. Sometimes you got to go to a different corner. No, I'm not going to freaking gorilla it. Just couple light taps. You get it to move. Then you go to the other corner. And this is where a lot of folks mess up, because you can tell they're hammering. But you gotta give it a little love tap. And then you see it start moving. Then you go to another damn corner. There's no reason for that to be chipped up. All you do, you go to another damn corner. This is how you remove a freaking intake the proper way. And see how it's starting to loosen up there. Then you go to the other corner. You know, you grab the very edge and you tap it. And then you go back to the original corner. I'm showing you guys this so this way you don't gouge up the center of your intake like that. I mean, you can tell that they were sitting there just banging and banging. Those are all screwdriver marks. Hell, I wouldn't doubt it if they freaking broke out an air chisel on it, because that was original to the motor and never tore apart. These don't come off easy, you know. See, then you just rock it. And I don't want to look at the gasket's moving. Gasket's not even sealed down to the freaking head. See, you just work it. You just gotta keep going back and forth. Take your time. You don't rush on something like this. This is how I save all my gaskets. I mean, not my gaskets, my intake. You know, I keep my intakes. So, just grab it, and you rock it, and let's see what the freak happened with these crackheads.
Line interior glue. Oh, there's a full gasket there.
Alright, they got the full gasket. Well, let's see why it's leaking. Let me grab my chisel. Whoa. Let me grab my scraper. First of all, that's a mighty small gasket. You know, it's not even a nice wide one because you want this to go across the whole thing, not dip down like that. You barely got any meat anywhere. Barely have meat there. Barely have meat anywhere. So this here was crushed by one of the boats probably. I don't think the screwdriver did it. And let's see why the this is probably why it was leaking. You see that raised up lip there? You know, this is probably on the wrong side because that's supposed to be on the engine side, not the freaking intake side. And then the intake itself, I'm gonna look at that in a second. But see that glue? It's all raised up. That's all interior glue. That's not silicone. That's not nothing. But we may have an issue here. Yeah, that's all wore the hell out, man. I'm trying not to
Coon got in there.
Huh?
I think Coon got in the thing there.
Yeah, but it's stayed in the valley though. You know, it's very, very little. But right here is all pitted up. Right there's all pitted up. So let me see if I can find my file so we can check the intake. Because another thing that a lot of folks do is that they hit it with a die grinder. You know what I'm saying? This is how... Let me grab my file. I'm going to show you how... Alright. Now, I can already see imperfections in the head. I see a bunch of little pits, but they're down here, so it should have went into there instead of up top. Alright. Now to check this, any person that builds engines and they pull the heads off, you know, they run a file across them. You know, to see how far down they got to cut the head, you know, to read through them. This is the same way. Alright, now it was leaking from right here. I don't know if that's a crack or not. But I want to see if it's flat. So I take a normal file like that and you lightly go across. You just lightly go across. It's kind of like doing body work, you know? So this way you can find out where the high spots are. And just like that, let me see if I can get a good look at it. It's not touching there. It's not really touching here and not touching here. So that's probably why it was leaking. Because they didn't screw it up. And when you screw it up, and you got to go across the whole thing once you do one part, but everything else is looking flat. See, everything else is hitting. It's all flat. You can see flat. Everything's flat. Except for this. Still got a low spot there. You can tell, I'm willing to bet that this was leaking right there. See how it's dipped in right there? This is why I tell you put a thin layer of silicone around the coolant ports on the intake and the heads. And two, that's too small. Way too small. Because if this is off just a little bit, that little spot there in the corner will leak right through here. So that was the issue. So now, it's more time, more money. I got a boatload of money wrapped up in this car. I mean, I got a shopping list of parts in this car. And it all ain't written down. You know?
That's only a quarter of it right now.
Yeah. I mean, I got a lot of money, a lot of time wrapped up in this car. I was going to start it today. I was going to drop the distributor in. I put the Jag's ignition module in there. You know, the MSD coil. I was ready to start this joker. But this is what happens when you let crackhead build your engines. They may be a talk of the town. They're cheap, this and that. But they don't guarantee their stuff either. You look into that. And you get some of that. And when you get stuck in the rear end, this is what happens. Brother Chad, G.C.B, Gangsta Custom Builds. Next time we come on, we should have it running. Have a good night.